Amidala Hopa. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of the ICT Newscast. The harsh history of boarding schools in the United States and Canada is unresolved, and yet in recent years there has been an accounting of some of the abuses as well as the steps being taken to right the wrongs. One of those actions starts in Pennsylvania, where a repatriation process is underway for the remains of 5 children who died at the Carlisle Indian Industrial School in the 1800s. For the first time, there will be ceremonies included after a historic pact was signed between 2 tribes and the U.S. Army. ICT's Stuart Huntington has the story.
The school grounds are today Army property, and previous repatriations were governed by Army protocols that banned indigenous ceremony and held that remains be handed only to next of kin, not to tribes. 2 tribes fought those rules for 6 years. Tamara St. John from the Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate has been engaged from the start.
First of all, it has been a fight for sovereignty, for us as a sovereign nation to be able to take control of this process and do things the way that we know they need to be done by our protocols, our spirituality, and ultimately to bring our children home with honor.
The new agreement allows the tribes to perform any requisite ceremonies at critical junctures of the process. It also allows the remains of Amos Laframboise from the Sisseton Wahpeton Oyate and Edward Upright from Spirit Lake to be turned over to the care of their tribes.
The Army's policy of next of kin really doesn't work. These children, like Amos, died in 1879. He does not have children and descendants. You're having to find those collateral descendants. It's an overwhelming, often impossible task. So to say that the Army's policies are overly burdensome is an understatement.
The tribes will also construct a sweat lodge on the former school grounds, a development hailed by attorney Beth Wright, who helped draft the pact.
When we think of boarding schools and especially Carlisle, the purpose of boarding schools was to prevent children from engaging in their traditional practices. And this is a way for the tribe to bring those practices back to their children who were prevented from having these ceremonies and these religious practices. And that's incredible.
The tribes did not get from the Army an understanding that a federal law governing native remains known as NAGPRA and not Army rules would control future repatriations. But they were happy with the agreement even as they eyed the future.
The tribe's goals were to make this process easier for the tribes that are coming next and the tribes that will continue to request the return of their children from other boarding schools.
Our belief is that NAGPRA does apply. We do not believe that the Army should be exempt. And this is just the beginning. This is, I've said so often lately, the tip of the iceberg. There are many, many boarding schools coming.
Reporting from Carbondale, Colorado, Stuart Huntington, ICT News.
We now learn more about that repatriation effort from Tamara St. John. She worked for years to get the remains of one of her tribal ancestors returned home from a cemetery at the Carlisle Indian Industrial School. The road seemed headed for a dead end, but with some help from attorneys at the Native American Rights Fund, it ended in a historic pact that introduced ceremony to Carlisle repatriations. St. John spoke with ICT's Stuart Huntington about the effort.
This has been a 6-year battle to try to find a means to facilitate this. The Native American Rights Fund people had been able to break through for us and build that bridge with the Army to even have the conversation to develop an agreement. Sisseton Wahpeton and Spirit Lake are one family. We are under the same treaty of February 19th, 1867. And our battle has been to be able to do things together in the way that we know that we need to do, with our spirituality, with our protocols, using our resources and our experts to be able to do this and bring them home. And, the ongoing conversations have been confusing. Our communication has been sporadic at best over this 6 years. And if you recall, the Army's policy of next of kin really doesn't work. It doesn't work for most people. They have resulted in this long 6 years, a 6 year wait to bring them home because we weren't able to at one point find the actual name of the father of one of them, or the fact that there are no historical records in 1879 that would name a child. It's an immense undertaking to try to meet that Army policy standard. We as a tribe have that right to be able to facilitate these things in the best interest of our families, our community, and our children. We know best. We know how to take care of our people, and to let us do these things in a way that honors our spirituality. The boarding schools were intended, and certainly Carlisle is probably the most notorious, known for to kill the Indian, save the man, that kind of mentality. And so to move that all the way to this process and to have ceremony or prayer in our language and in our ways of prayer, our spirituality, our protocols, to be able to do that right there at Carlisle, the very place that was intended to erase those things, is really a tremendous, tremendous, I think, success for us and for other tribes. One elder had said to me, these young men would have been chiefs had this not happened to them. And when you bring them home, you bring them home wrapped in buffalo robes like the chiefs that they are. And so we made that commitment to do that. And you notice in the agreement, there is not only those elements of spirituality, prayer, and protocol with our traditional societies and our spiritual practices, but also the buffalo robes, that the Army will be supplying those buffalo robes. Typically, they would do the American flag, the slow salute, transfer ceremony. And in this instance, we feel this is not their story. That is not their story, that of a soldier. We need to define the narrative and share the truth of history, the truth of who they are, and what happened there, so that our modern generations are able to understand and maybe understand where we are today. This whole story has been about everything related to education and history. And those are things that I think in many states, in many communities, we fight for those things, to be able to share our history in truth in our own voices. And in this instance, instead of the military cemetery policy dictating the transfer ceremony of like a soldier, we are doing this the way that we know is best, a way that is with family love, with truth and honor.
Tamara St. John, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for the work you do.